We're here at the Warsaw Security Forum, and my guest today is Jason Crow, member of the House of Representatives of U.S. Congress, a Democrat from the good old state, my home state of Colorado. You serve on the House Foreign Services Committee and the Intelligence Committee. Sir, thank you very much for joining us on TVP World.
It's great to be with you. Thanks for having me today. And it's good. It's wonderful to be in Warsaw.
Well, welcome to Warsaw. It is a truly unique place, that's for sure.
It is.
So, as you're here at the Warsaw Security Forum, I heard you speak earlier today about the relations between Poland and the United States, and especially when we talk about things like defense. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people here, not only in Poland, but also in Europe, are concerned and a little bit confused about how delicate that relationship is. Do you think that the outcome of this election in the United States is going to determine somewhat what that relationship looks like?
Well, you know, I first of all want to start off by recognizing Poland as an essential security partner of the United States. We continue to invest in the relationship with Poland because Poland has done so much, and the Polish people have done so much. The manner in which you opened up your houses, opened up your doors when the war in Ukraine kicked off in 2022 was just remarkable. Accepting the refugees, accepting those families, and then serving as the focal point to international security assistance for Ukraine. I just can't thank the Polish people enough for doing that. And of course, it's in your interest to do that, but you have consistently gone above and beyond, and that's recognized by the United States. And it's one of the big reasons why the United States continues to make investment in Poland, economic investment, national security investment, why we continue to put more troop presence here, because you are such a great partner and you're committed to it. And we share that deep concern for European security. And then to more directly answer the question about the impact of the election, there's no doubt in the United States that there's a very big debate going on right now about what our role in the world is going to be and how we're going to engage. And I of course have my viewpoints as a Democrat, but I will say this to Europe: the connections, the deep connections, and the relationships and the infrastructure that's built, and the support by the American people remain extremely strong. So there is a difference sometimes between the rhetoric and the actions and the reality. And that's not to say the rhetoric isn't important, because it really is. And the messages you send dictates policy and also sends a message to our adversaries. But the reality is that there is continuous and very broad-based support for the European relationship.
Now, here in Poland, and you've rightly highlighted the fact that we've been dealing with the effects of the war over in Ukraine, and it continues to be one of our main security threats here in this part of Europe, and something that we're deeply concerned about. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that the United States is going to continue to stand behind Ukraine and try to ease our fears a little bit about an aggressive and an imperialistic and a revisionist Russia as we're seeing today?
Well, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we do. And I join with my colleagues, Democrat and Republican, to continue to push additional security assistance, to continue to expand our relationship with NATO and with Poland, as I just described. There's a lot of support for that. No country can ever take for granted that their support. Poland is no different, right? You have to have elections. You have to make sure that voters and your people understand why you're doing things and why you're spending money. I mean, it's their money. It's the taxpayers' money. And we have to be judicious with it, and we have to be smart with it, and we have to spend it in ways that are consistent with their interests, which I absolutely think is the case for Ukraine. Right? The United States is not giving charity here, and I say this over and over again. This is not charity. This is actually in Americans' self-interest that we do this for our security, for our economy, for our own prosperity, and for the safety of American families. So we always have to make that case, I guess is what I'm trying to say. You can never take anything for granted, because if you stop making that case, then you lose public support.
In terms of defense cooperation, do you see some areas where Poland and the United States can enhance the cooperation that they already have? Poland's a good client for the United States armaments industry. Yeah. Is there potential new avenues that can be explored in this blossoming relationship?
Yeah, there absolutely are. There's several that are very promising and exciting to me. One is on the issue of co-production. So what this war has, the war in Ukraine has illustrated for everybody is that the industrial base is not where it needs to be. It's not healthy enough to sustain, a long-term war like the type that we're seeing in Ukraine. And no one country can do that alone, right? The United States has a massive industrial base. In fact, our foreign military sales reached a historic high last year. It was the highest in history since we started keeping the data on our foreign military sales. But what we need to do going forward is make sure that we are doing joint production. I think that would be good for everybody's economy. The U.S. economy would benefit from that. The Polish economy would benefit from that. And there are already several initiatives underway between the United States and Poland to do that joint production, because Poland is number one in NATO spending per capita, which demonstrates your commitment. But to make that a long-term commitment and make it in the best interest of both the Polish people and the American people, I think co-production is what we need to look at expanding. So that's number one. Number two is intelligence sharing. The United States obviously has an incredible intelligence apparatus and infrastructure. We saw the war coming. Our support's been instrumental in helping the Ukrainians, find targets, respond to threats, and the same with Poland. Your proximity, Poland's proximity, your history, and how well you know the Russian threat is really important for us as well. So continuing to build out a joint intelligence capability, I think, will be in both of our best interests.
Are there any barriers which currently prevent that, and especially if we look at the wider Europe and the intelligence sharing between the United States and Europe?
Yeah, I would say the biggest barrier right now is the involvement of China. The United States has been very clear that Russia would not be able to do what it's doing, rebuilding its military capability and continuing an aggressive offensive in Ukraine, if it weren't for China. China is supplying it. They're helping rebuild industrial capacity in Russia. They are an essential Russian partner, and as the leaders of those countries have made very clear, it's a no-limits partnership. So the question for Europe is, are you willing to continue to spend tens of billions of dollars, continuing to have to build up your own national security infrastructure and your military, and ignore the role of China in that? And if you're not, then that means hard conversations about economic entanglements, about energy security, all the things that you need to start talking about holding China accountable. And one very specific piece of that is telecom infrastructure. I would love for us to continue to build out our very healthy intelligence sharing relationship, but we're limited in what we can do so long as you have Huawei Chinese 5G infrastructure, because that is infrastructure that in our view is not secure, it's not compromised, that is under the control of the Chinese Communist Party, and we simply will not continue to expand that relationship if we don't believe that the information is secure.
From an American perspective, does it look like Europe has a too fragmented of a policy towards China? You have lots of individual approaches within the European Union. Is this a problem for the American-European relationship?
I don't think so. I mean, the United States is a superpower. China is an aspiring superpower. We are looking at things globally, right? Not just in the Indo-Pacific, but in the Western Hemisphere, in Europe, in the Africa continent. We're looking at the economic issues. We're looking at climate change, climate crisis issues. We're looking at international labor and supply chain issues. So there are some areas in which there are possibilities of collaboration. And I would even go as far to say that more than a possibility, that it might be necessary to work with each other in ways that we both benefit from, and that we can only address issues jointly, the climate crisis being one of them. Investment in clean and renewable energy and reducing carbon emissions, which is important for the future of our planet, is something that both the United States and China should have a vested interest in. Now, we want to do it fair, right? And we believe that the Chinese consistently play unfairly and they engage in predatory economics, that they engage in dumping policies, that their way of getting involved in renewable energy economy has been largely unfair. So we have no problem competing. The United States is always willing to compete. We just want to compete on a level and fair playing field. But there are areas of collaboration like that. There are others where we're very clear that if you're not going to play by the rules of the road, if you're going to threaten people's sovereignty, if you're going to threaten their security, if you're going to threaten their freedom, that we will stand up to that and we will join with other countries to push back against that.
Many have said that China has been watching the war in Ukraine very closely. I believe you've alluded to, many people have, the fact that China is allowing this war to continue. Concerning Taiwan, do you think that China has learned any lessons from this expansionist, somewhat colonialistic approach by Russia into its own behavior in its own backyard in regards to Taiwan?
Well, this is a story that is not yet written, and this is why I continue to push so hard for Ukraine support, because this is not just about Ukraine. Now, there's a moral reason enough, and an economic reason, and a national security enough to support Ukraine. But on top of that, everybody else is watching too. You know, there are countries, the whole world is watching this. And certainly Xi is watching this, and the Chinese Communist Party is watching very closely. And the question in their mind is, can the West go the distance? Can the United States and our allies see this through to the end? Can we do hard things over a long period of time? And if the answer to that is yes, then that changes fundamentally China's risk calculation and many others, Iran, North Korea, that changes their risk calculation in what it is they think they can get away with. If the answer is no, then it opens up a free-for-all, and that would lead to a world that I don't think any of us want to see for our children and grandchildren.
One criticism that would be levied against democracies, the fact that we have elections and we choose new leaders and we choose new directions every couple of years. Some people say that this benefits dictators like Xi Jinping or like Vladimir Putin. What would you say to that?
I fundamentally reject that conclusion. You know, democracy appears ugly a lot. It is challenged. It's really tough. It's really tough. America is seeing that right now, having these tough conversations, going through these debates. It is a very challenging process, but there is a resiliency to democracy, because what you see is all the hopes and dreams and fears and anxieties of a society are funneled into that process. There's some place for that energy to go and some place for those conversations to happen, right? And we have to learn how to manage it in a different way, right? We have to learn how to manage it differently, and I say that because technology, the way we communicate, the impact of social media, the impact of AI has changed the way that we have that conversation, the way that we manage our democracies, and we have not quite figured out how to adapt to some of those changes and some of those new technologies. But fundamentally, democracies remain more responsive, more open, and more resilient because they're not based on one person or group of people. And you contrast that with, you know, Vladimir Putin or President Xi. You know, these are systems that are based on one person or one small group of people, and there's no place for the fears and hopes and dreams and all the energy of their people to go. It's simply ignored and pushed down. Those systems, history has shown, are not resilient systems. And they appear strong until they're not.
Until they're not. Representative Jason Crow from the Centennial State of Colorado, thank you very much for joining us today on TVP World.
It's good to be with you. Thanks.
Thank you. And that concludes this talk here from the Warsaw Security Forum. Thank you for joining us, and stay with us for more on TVP World.